Music of the Civil War. Military bands were called upon to play at recruitment rallies, and their patriotic marching tunes that even inspired young men to enlist. A type of band that was played or included when volunteers regiments were recruited was a regimental band. These types of bands were played at parades, formations, dress parades, and evening concerts. Also, these bands were mostly authorized by Union and Confederate armies. The replace of the discharged regimental bands was known as a brigade bands, which were formed to serve the entire brigade of a division. It was known that there were fewer Confederate bands because musicians were not quite as plentiful in the South, and good instruments were expensive and very difficult to obtain, and that good quality brass instruments were rare because that metal was in short supply in the Confederacy, and some of the best instrument makers were in the North. Many Confederate bands were dismissed from service after the first year of the war through several organizations. Each company in an infantry regiment had a musician who was usually a drummer. They were relied upon to play drum beats to call the soldiers into formation and for other events. Drums got the soldiers up in the morning, signaled them to report for morning roll call, sick call, and guard duty. The most important use of drums was on the battlefield, where they were used to communicate orders from the commanding officers and signal troop movement. The drums used during the Civil War were made out of wood that had been cut into thin layers, steamed, and formed into a round shell. The Confederate drum differed from the Union drum used during the Civil War because the Confederate drum mainly just having plain wood finish. The heads of the drum were made from calf skin and stretched tied by ropes. During the Civil War, many drummers were accompanied by a fifer, one who used a fife. The fife was a high-pitched instrument similar to a piccolo and made of rosewood. This hollow wooden instrument was played by blowing wind over one hole and controlling the pitch with fingers placed over the holes along the length of the tube. Fancier fifes had brass fittings and engravings on them. Like drummers, the fifers were also part of the regiment bands who were detailed as musicians. Was allowed to go into battle. This is because sometimes when fighting appeared imminent, musicians were often ordered to the near assist surgeons and care for the wounded. However, some brigade bands did accompany their commanders onto the field and play patriotic songs while under the battle raged all around them. More band, which was a cavalry, that were somewhat different from Confederate unit and brigade bands regiments. This is because cavalry regiments did not use drums and fifes. Instead, they used bugles to sound the different calls in camp and on the march. The bugler was considered a cavalry regiment musician. Cavalrymen became so familiar with their own musician and his bugle calls that they could often distinguish his calls from that of another regiment. Like each and every one of us, the soldiers also had their own favorite type of style of music. This is because sometimes they even sang to keep up their spirit. One of the most liked and popular songs from the Union was the Battle Cry of Freedom.